Alright, lesson 13, distance between 2 points. Not a lot of questions to do in this unit, but you'll see that it's a pretty straightforward concept. And it is using old Pythagoras' rule of a squared plus b squared equals c squared. So we can obviously use this for the distance between 2 points, a and b relating to our x and y distances, I guess, in this case. So I've got an example here for you. You can see that we've gone 4 units to the right. Our distance from left to right from 3 to 7 is 4, and our distance up from 2 to 8 is 6. So we can use that in our Pythagoras form. So we can write it as 6 squared plus 4 squared equals c squared, our unknown length. That comes out to be 36 plus 16, which equals c squared. And we end up with 52 equals c squared. And to bring across that square root, to cancel there, we square root both sides. And we can say that c approximately equals 7.21. Again, its exact form is as a surd, square root of 52, and that's a perfectly acceptable response. But if a test asks you to do it to, say, 2 decimal places, you could write it as c approximately as 7.21. So let's have a go at a couple of those. To find out a value in the Pythagoras form, we get one of our x's and subtract the other one. So 2 minus 1 is 1, and our b is 6 minus 1, which is 5. We can then put those straight into our Pythagoras form. So a in this case was 1, and b was 5. And that's going to give us, let's take this up here, 1 plus 25. 1 squared is 1, 5 squared is 25. And if we square root both sides, we end up with 20, the square root of 26. Oh, I don't have a calculator on me, so you might have to just do your own calculator. Oh, let's get one up. Hold on a second. So you can see on the right here, the square root of 26 is 5.099, I think it was. Yep, again, depending on what you're rounding to, but we'd probably just leave it as the square root of 26 is fine. Let's have another go at that. So I'm getting my, usually my larger x term, so I'm going to do 3 minus 1, which is 2, and, oh no, there we go. And our b values, which is 4 minus 2, which is 2. Using our y values, distance between one y value and the other y value. So we've got 2 and 2, which is going to get us to 8, I believe. 2 squared is 4, 4 plus 4 is 8, and the square root of 8, again, perfectly acceptable answer there, is 2.83. 2.83, depending on what decimal places you need to go to. Sometimes you might need to simplify it, so we can always write the square root of 8 as 2 root 2. So just be careful if you need to simplify the surd. If you don't quite remember that, just ask me in class. We'll go from there. All right. The cool thing about this, though, is Pythagoras' formula can be rearranged into this wonderful thing, which gives us the distance between the 2 points just by subbing in the values, just like we did before. So we don't really have to find out what a was and then work from there. If you prefer that method, then feel free to do so. But this is also a very useful formula, as you'll see in just a moment. So if I get my x2 value of 0 and subtract negative 2, and my y2 value of negative 4 and subtract 0, I end up with 0 plus 2, which is 2, and negative 4 minus 0, which is negative 4. 2 squared is 4, and be really careful with these. This is the same as negative 4 times negative 4, which is going to get us to positive 16, which gets us to the square root of 20. So just by using this formula, we've gotten to the same result as we just have, but it's a little bit neater and easier to use. Let's do the same thing. So we'll call these x2, y2, and x1 and y1. So my x2 value is 9 minus 1, and y2 value is 7 minus negative 1. Of course, this becomes a plus. 9 minus 1 is 8, and 7 plus 1 is 8. 8 squared is 64, and 64. And that's going to get us to 128, which I'm sure we can simplify down to be... So we can write it as 11.31, but if we wanted it as a simplified surd, we could say that 64 goes into 128 twice. So we could write that. And the square root of 64 is 8, square root 2. So yeah, we know that works from what we had above in a kind of weird way. But yeah, the square root of 64 is 8, so we can write it as 8 square root 2, these being the same thing. So I know that's a bit of a weird lesson. Watch that again if you're getting stuck on anything. Really important is just make sure you label all your points correctly and you're subbing the values into the correct spaces using these formulas. If you get that right, you pretty much can't go wrong from there.